In Pokemon, using your favorite Pokemon to succeed is one of the most exciting feelings in all of gaming. When you find yourself winning with something unique or uncommon, it feels way better than just following the meta. But what if you were so brilliant when planning for the highest level tournaments that every event you went to, you did something crazy? What if you could not only bring something original, but find huge success almost every time? This is Sander Wojcik, the best control player in the Pokemon TCG and one of the best deck builders of all time. Some of your favorite, and in some cases least favorite, strategies in the game are the result of his genius. So let's talk about it.
Take KOs and you win before your opponent wins. And I think like this different view on the game where you don't even try to win in a prize race, but you try to win in a resource war, or you try to wall out your opponent or lock them out.
And Silene there, one heads, but that's going to be more than enough. Just going to obviously get back to that power pad.
Yep, that's priority number one anytime you flip the Silene. Sydney, does Sander slam the Sydney down short enough? Let's take a look at that hand. There is the Aurora energy, and Lucas concedes the game, says that's my last energy to be able to attack with Lumineon. I'm out of here.
Wow.
And I felt like, why not, see what happens if I really prepare for a tournament, really take the time to create something that maybe has potential.
Two attachments, including a double turbo away from attacking. I've never seen so much Giacomo in one game. Like he does have
a pass, a restart, and now we see a pass. I apologise. And there's a penny.
You called it yourself. Radiant Charizard gets the KO, and we are going to game two. Sander up 1-0.
Being crowned control king, I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense.
Play this game, and now when
it's time!
Mewtwo v Union! Let's go!
We finally saw the energy coming up from the Silene.
Spread onto your opponent's Pokemon. Has to pass, the Miltank is
There's
still stranded in the
net.
office. Scoop up net brings the Mewtwo v Union back into the active.
Oh, let's go to math class. I think this is going to be a lot of damage. We have the 16 with 6 to the active, and that is going to be a great way to close out game 2.
Sander is from the Netherlands. He has been going to official Pokemon tournaments for at least a decade now.
I started playing and I got introduced to the competitive game because actually the tournament organizers, the biggest tournament organizers in the Netherlands, lived in the same streets. And they back then, even now, Elsa still judges and travels the world. And it's like one head judge, I think. And they lived a couple houses over, so that's kind of what introduced me to the competitive side.
And I kid you not, every single deck he has played to an event was, in some way, a controlling deck. And the only exception, which was his first event, had Garbodor, which is in its own essence a controlling card. For those unfamiliar, in the Pokemon TCG, control refers to strategies meant to, well, control your opponent's board state. This can be achieved through pure disruption, like removing their energy from play, walling, by leaving a Pokemon in the active your opponent either can't knock out or will likely never knock out, or stalling, where you trap a Pokemon from retreating or prevent them from attacking altogether. Some of the most hated cards in Pokemon history fit this mold, like Seismitoad EX, Vileplume, the Rocket's Trap, and more. These cards all in some way hinder your opponent while playing into a larger win condition. As for Sander, he seemed to always favor these strategies over the standard attacking decks of every format.
First was trying, I felt like it was kind of underexplored. I felt like looking at the cards, there definitely was potential. In the TCG, even though the main way for people to win is to win a prize race, you take KOs and you win before your opponent wins. And I think like this different view on the game where you don't even try to win in a prize race, but you try to win in a resource war, or you try to wall out your opponent or lock them out. To even like kind of go on that road, you need to kind of look at cards in a different spotlight. So having your own style, that like one of the strengths is not only the style itself, but that it is so rare.
No matter what, it is this style of deck that has made Sander the legend he is today. His innovation started when he got top 16 at the 2018 European International Championships with one of the most toxic loop decks you will ever see. Here it is. Yeah. You would use Raichu from Burning Shadows to paralyze your opponent's active Pokemon. Then use Devolution Spray to de-evolve the Raichu, ready to be evolved next turn. The final piece of the puzzle was Heatmore's Odor Sleuth attack, which let you flip 2 coins and put a card into your hand for each heads. Keep this style of card in mind, specifically the Heatmore, as it will become important later. To improve the consistency of this attack, you could play Victini from Rising Guardians, which had an ability that let you reflip any coins if you flip double tails. You would mostly recover Devolution Spray to devolve the Raichu again. See the loop now? You would do this until your opponent decked out and you would win the game. There were also some other fun tech options, which would become a standard in Sander's decks, like a one of Ninja Boy and Durant to mill 4 cards out of nowhere by slapping on a Rainbow Energy using the Scrape Down attack to take a cheeky win. Xurkitree GX could wall some decks out with its ability, making it immune to Pokemon with special energy attacks. And Stardust Jirachi could also wall out some decks for a turn or two while discarding your opponent's special energy. This deck is honestly a masterpiece, and it's sad we couldn't see this deck in action more. It didn't really catch on in a big way since Sander is the only player to ever record a result with this deck, a trend which will become common, but it puts Sander on the map as somebody who wasn't afraid to take big swings at huge tournaments. The next result on Sander's page is a 20th place at a regional with another toxic lock deck, this time with Wobuffet. The Bide Barricade ability locked abilities while Wobuffet was in the active spot, and it could be really frustrating to play against if your deck really relied on abilities. The main piece was Wobuffet Break. Break Pokemon would be put on the Pokemon as an extra evolution while keeping the abilities and attacks of the old Pokemon. So Wobuffet Break would keep the Bide Barricade ability and increase its HP. Its only attack right back at you forced you to discard all energy attached to the Wobuffet Break. In exchange, if Wobuffet Break took any damage during your opponent's next turn, the attacking Pokemon would take that much damage as well. This could completely buy you a turn here and there if your opponent wasn't feeling like taking a ton of damage, and you could do this while gradually chipping away at your opponent's health with Wobuffet's attack Psychic Assault. The rest of the deck was built to be as annoying as possible for the entirety of the game. There were more energy removal cards in this deck than calories in a frickin' lunch league. 2 Crushing Hammer, 3 Enhanced Hammer, 1 Plumeria, 1 Team Skull Grunt, 4 Team Flare Grunt, and 3 Lusamine, which could indefinitely loop those supporters. By using Lusamine to grab 1 Lusamine and another supporter every turn, you could infinitely recycle all the supporter cards, like Team Rocket's Handiwork, which could mill out the deck, Acerola to heal you, and more. Max Potion could also heal off your opponent's hard-earned damage after a while. Other tech options included 2 Hoopa to wall out EX and GX Pokemon, Mewtwo from Evolutions with the Barrier attack making it immune for a full turn, and Mew from Evolutions, which could wall out Evolution Pokemon. Now, I must say this deck wasn't really Sander's own innovation, since it was used the prior weekend to get top 8 at a special event. But this list just seems like a nightmare to play against, and it ultimately did pretty good for Sander. But I know why you're here, to see some of the most innovative decks ever. While you're here, you should subscribe. A lot of you guys aren't, and it's free, helps both of us out, supply and demand. Anyways, back to Sander. This next innovation was truly something remarkable. Sander got top 8 at a regional with this. Yeah. It is a dedicated Acerola loop deck. The main strategy was to use annoying wall Pokemon like Steelix and Wailord to soak up a ton of damage over a few turns, then use Acerola to fully heal it, bench it, and loop again with Acerola and Lusamine to recycle them. This deck relied on the Steven's Resolve engine to find combo pieces turn after turn. By searching for 2 cards plus another Steven, you could usually find what you needed when you needed it. This would also be the first tournament I could find that Sander would use a card that would become a regular in a lot of his decks, Oranguru from Ultra Prism with the Resource Management attack. Getting 3 cards back from the discard pile actually ended up being so good that it got banned in the expanded format for being too toxic. I can't go over all the lines of play possible with this deck, but I'll link all of these deck lists and some interesting stream games or tweets from Sander in the description if you wanted to check them out for yourselves. The next 3 decks are all different versions of a similar wall deck built around Hoopa and Regigigas. Regigigas has massive HP and access to the ability Ancient Crystal that reduces damage done to it by 30. This would be used to sponge damage only to heal with Acerola later. Some standout inclusions in these 3 deck lists include Unknown Hand as an alternate win condition, Sableye to lock supporters, a one of Goomy to increase the attack cost of your opponent, yeah, Goomy, and Noibat to completely obliterate the opponent's hand, just to name a few. These 3 lists are all similar, but very different and with different Pokemon inclusions. They got him 15th, 3rd, and 3rd again at the 3 regionals he played these decks to. Sander was really making a name for himself in the European tournament scene, and all around the world, but this would be nothing compared to what would come later. At the 2019 World Championships, Sander brought this. It looks like an ordinary grass attacking deck built around Rowlet and Alolan Executor GX. But look a little bit closer and there's a ton going on. First, Leavanny could be put into play with Rowlet and Alolan Executor's attack on the first turn of the game going second. Reducing damage done by 40 is really annoying, and with Shaman you could provide a ton of staying power, mostly for said Rowlet and Alolan Executor. But this strategy has one huge problem. Fire-type Pokemon can easily blow up this Rowlet. And with the fire-type attackers in the format like Reshizard and Blacephalon, this might seem like an Achilles heel. But there is a counter. Araquanid's Water Bubble prevents all damage done to it by fire-type Pokemon. And with these decks only often playing fire-type Pokemon, Araquanid could almost entirely wall out this strategy's one weakness. There are also some really fun inclusions too, like Latios GX to prevent your opponent from using GX attacks for the rest of the game. There is probably a specific matchup this is good for, but I actually don't know what that is. There's also this Dewpider that could evolve into Araquanid, but stay unevolved and use the Spiderweb attack to retreat lock a Pokemon forever if it isn't manually switched out. This could be really great at trapping unsuspecting Dedenne GX, since some decks that use this card couldn't actually attack with it, including the winning deck Mewtwo and Mew GX. Faba, Lusamine Loop, and 2 Power Plant could also provide huge disruption consistently. This deck is extremely cool, honestly, and it's a shame that this version of the deck wasn't played more. After Worlds, Sander really started heating up in the 2019-2020 season. He got a top 32 at the Sheffield Regionals, although I can't find the deck list on Limitless or on Sander's Twitter, but it looks like another control deck, big shock. However, the next result is a second place with one of the most oppressive Handlock decks in history. Remember Oranguru from earlier? Well, it was now its time to shine as the star of the show. This deck aimed to dig for resources turn after turn with Pidgeotto's airmail ability into the pieces of a deadly combo. You would find the right opportunity and use Articuno GX's GX attack to strip a Pokemon of all of its energy. You would wait until your opponent went down to 2 or 3 prize cards remaining to initiate the Handlock. Play Surge's strategy, Reset Stamp, and Jesse and James in succession. Either discard Weezing or play Mars after, and you could completely strip your opponent's hand. Then, after that, you would use Chip Chip Ice Axe to prevent your opponent from drawing into anything good by controlling their top deck. Oranguru was used to loop these resources and keep the lot going turn after turn to dig through the deck with Pidgeotto. You would never deck out, and eventually, you could find the right opportunity to deck your opponent out. Super toxic. And he got second at the Cologne Regionals with this deck, barely losing to Tord in the finals. After getting top 64 with a dedicated Oranguru loop deck, Sander would place top 4 at Malmo Regionals with this. Zacian Control, it's called on Limitless. Zacian V was one of the best attackers in the game, but it would never attack in this deck. You didn't play the 3 Metal Energy. You would use the Intrepid Sword ability not as energy acceleration like it was in ADP decks, but as a draw engine. Combined with Chinchino's Make Do ability, you could easily draw into the deadly combo of control cards aforementioned from the Handlock, as well as cards like Faba, Lily's Pokédoll, Wondrous Labyrinth, and Crushing Hammer. This deck even played one copy of Will to ensure that Crushing Hammer would always flip heads, which is just nasty. I mean, that's toxic. This deck is just absurd and truly back to Sander's roots with all the different lines of play, and it clearly did well for him. The next deck is a second place masterpiece at the Pokemon Online Global Championships, which helped replace in-person events during COVID. This deck was also built with Zacian, Oranguru, and Chinchino, but with even more tech cards this time. Delcatty could recover 2 supporter cards, Giratina could remove special energy, Girafarig could lost zone your opponent's discarded cards, Wobuffet to disable Prism Star Pokemon, and even Magic Even's Mr. Mime GX to help with ADP after they used Altered Creation. This deck had an answer to almost everything, and despite being based on an existing list, it was truly a creation. Second place is nothing to scoff at, especially considering the prestige of this tournament. Now comes the season we all remember, the 2021 through 2022 Pokemon TCG season. Top 8 at Liverpool Regionals with a Phantom Transformation Zoroark control deck with Gorbis and Rabombi. Top 64 at Frankfurt Regionals with this doesn't even sound real. Umbreon VMAX, Eldegoss V, Double Turbo Energy, Sun and Moon Badge, Birdkeeper, Cheryl, Mewtwo loop control deck. Yes, you heard that right. The stream round of this deck is absolutely insane. I highly recommend you watch it. I will post the link in the description. It is incredible. This deck is just, oh my god, this deck hurts my head. But now here we are, the big one, the deck that redefined how to innovate in a seemingly shallow format. This is the top 4 NAIC Mewtwo V Union stall deck. Snorlax to draw cards, Miltank as a supplementary wall option, Yveltal for Mew VMAX, Galarian Meowth to discard V Union pieces, Mewtwo as the main draw engine, aside from Snorlax, and the deck was built around Mewtwo V Union, a bulk card at the time that no one really cared about. However, after one Union gain, you could use the 2 attacks, Psy-Splosion and Super Regeneration. The main focus was the latter, where you could heal 200 damage with 1 attack every single turn. So, if you could take 200 or less damage from the opponent's attacks, you would never die. You would try to stall or be super annoying until you got the V Union set up, and once you finally did, you would use scoop up nets to pull up all of your Pokemon, leaving Mewtwo as the lone one, so you would never lose. But what if you decked out? Well, this is where another innovation, the Silene resource loop, prevented you from decking out. Silene flips 2 coins and puts a card on the top of your deck for each heads. Sound familiar? With 2 Silene, 2 Palpad, and 1 Team Yell's Cheer, there was a very low chance you would ever deck out. The rest of the deck is just pure genius. 2 Peonia, not just for the Mewtwo V Union, but also to get key resources out of the prize cards. 2 Flannery to help with Mew VMAX and Arceus decks. 1 Avery as a tech for Palkia. 4 Scoop Up Net for the Snorlax, and so you could get a lone Mewtwo board. And even a copy of Cook for extra healing, which could be used to take a turn off healing and use Psy-Splosion or Final Burn, or it could be used to help if your opponent could do over 200 damage. This is Sander's masterpiece, and unlike some of his other creations, it caught on in a big way. Mewtwo V Union Control has hundreds of results, and even won the Toronto Regional Championships during the next season, and was used to place several Day 2 finishes or better at other events. This was the peak of creativity in a seemingly shallow format, using a mechanic nobody believed in and a card that no one wanted, making it the centerpiece of a deck that almost went all the way on the biggest stage. People loved this deck, including me, for how creative it was, and it's not hard to see why. Sander would bring a Stonejourner VMAX deck to Worlds for a top 128 placement. This was another healing stall deck, but his next deck would be a perfect fit for the meta at hand. Lugia V-Star was dominating the game. Sander, knowing this, brought a full counterbox deck to LAIC, placing 5th. This deck has many options for the meta's biggest threats. 4 Yveltal, mostly for the Lugia matchup, 1 Miltank to help with any Arceus decks, 1 Ice-Skew and 1 Wash Energy to beat Lost Box, and even Greedent V as a situational attacker. This almost won Sander the event, earning him yet another top 8 placement at a major. 1 week later at the Stuttgart Regionals, Sander placed top 8 yet again with a dedicated Mewtwo V Union deck. But this time, he wasn't only relying on Super Regeneration and Cook for his healing. Gengar from all the way back in Sword and Shield base set has an ability that lets you move damage freely amongst your Psychic Pokemon. Using the Kirlia from Silver Tempest as a draw engine and Gardevoir from Chilling Reign as a way to accelerate energy to Mewtwo, you could move your damage with Gengar over to them. And this also helped a ton with discarding your V-Union pieces. You would then use Radiant Serena to heal all of that damage, only to Super Regeneration back to full health. The only bad matchup, Mew VMAX, was helped by Shadow Rider Calyrex V's Shadow Mist attack used to block Mew's special energy from being attached. Another fantastic meta call, ultimately placing 6th. Sander brought a variant of the Yveltal deck to Liverpool Regionals, placing 8th, and after rotation, Sander top 32 to EUIC with this. From what I can tell, it is a Mimikyu V stall deck, where you loop Penny and Mimikyu V's ability to make it completely invincible. Other tech options were Mawile for retreat lock, Shadow Rider V for the special energy lock, Regieleki for an extra resource management, and even Ursaluna V as a bulky Pokemon to switch into after needing to use Silene to reset. Remarkable deck, honestly. After bringing this to the 2023 World Championships, Sander has found some more success, with 3 top 16 finishes in his last 3 events. 2 were different variants of a Pidgeotty X control deck, and the other was a unique take on the Snorlax stall deck that didn't play any Rotom V. a huge innovation, since all standard Snorlax decks played at least one Rotom. Now, Rotomless Snorlax is actually pretty popular thanks to Sander, with good placements at events. I myself actually used a variant of it to get top 128 at a regional this year, and I never even considered this before Sander got 12th at Lille. No matter what happens next, Sander has solidified himself as the best control player in the world, one of the best players in the game, and one of the most innovative players of all time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, subscribing will be greatly appreciated. I work really hard on these videos, getting them out as quickly as possible, managing like 50 other things, and subscribing would mean the world to me. Let me know in the comments what you think of Sander and his decks. Anyways, take care, have a good one wherever you are, bye.